All right, so the next session is called Leveraging Veterinary Talent to Optimize Productivity and Create Sustainable Workspaces. Speaking on this issue, very pleased to welcome Dr. Katie Cutter, who is the Chief Executive Officer of BoosterPet. So Katie, we're ready for
Well,
you.
thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and thank you for wading through the technical difficulties here as I talk about how to use technology to boost your clinical efficiency here. So as everyone here is very well knows, that veterinary medicine is evolving now faster than ever, just like the rest of the world. And so today we're going to talk about some of the critical transformations that we need to start implementing into our practice in order to kind of stay up with those changes and be at the forefront rather than playing catch up. So it mainly revolves around leveraging existing technologies to improve operational flows and optimizing our support staff roles to drive clinic financial performance. So at BoosterPet, we've seen firsthand how this combination of technology and innovation and personnel strategy management can create a more profitable, efficient, and sustainable practice. So we want to share some of our learnings with you guys here today. So we'll talk about kind of the industry problem, technology as a financial multiplier, right? The role of support staff and profitability. And then a couple of like just real world results and implementation strategies that you might be able to bring back to your practice with you. Let's see if I can move this slide. Oop, there we go. So just a little bit about me. Graduated from vet school and from NC State back in 2000, and did my internship and ophthalmology residency up at Cornell. Happened to marry a veterinary neurologist, and so practiced a little bit around the world, but ended up in the Southwest. My husband and I started a boutique neurology practice that then we expanded to multiple practices across the Southwest. I was having a great time. He, however, was not. So we ended up kind of selling those practices one by one to a consolidator, which kind of led me on my journey to start BoosterPet. But in the meantime, I also co-founded a job sharing platform called Jobs Unleashed, which I sold in 2021. And now BoosterPet is my full-time job here. So just a little bit about me. So as we know, that veterinary medicine, here we can go here, is facing critical economic and operational changes. So anyone who's involved in hospital operations knows that veterinarians are like unicorns here, right? There's a shortage of veterinarians leading to burnout and some reduced access to client access to veterinarians. High staffing cost, which is largely the result of the shortage of veterinarians, right? Veterinarians know they have the upper hand here, and we pay them more to work for us, which has some downfall repercussions in the P&L, right? High staffing costs are also translating and need to translate across our support staff too, so that kind of bottlenecks further the clinic P&L. Creating a lot of both staffing and financial inefficiencies. So labor-intensive workflows reduce margins further. And so most clinics right now, GP clinics, are operating in that kind of 10 to 15% profitability. So our traditional workflows just aren't sustainable long-term. So what we've done at BoosterPet to address this is we've combined different technology stacks and said, okay, well, if we can't create more veterinarians, right? So how do we use the staff that we have more effectively? So BoosterPet itself is 7 hospitals across the Seattle area. And so what we've done in each of those hospitals, and we're a combination of both de novo and acquired hospitals, okay? So what we've done is we've taken that typical GP experience and we've divided it basically into 2 lanes of care, right? So you have, let me see if I can get you here. So you have the wellness lane of care, and then you have the non-wellness lane of care, right? So our boots on ground veterinarian is now responsible for everything in that non-wellness lane of care. And so that could be urgent care cases. We do use the term urgent care because I think it's a good marketing message to the public to let them know that they can come to you when their animal is sick. So urgent care, chronic care, and surgical care kind of fall into that boots on ground veterinarian bucket. But then we take the wellness care and we mix it up a little bit. So we have our highly trained LVTs and VAs that receive the wellness cases boots on ground and bring the clients through that exam experience. And then when we're ready for the veterinarian consultation, we zoom in the wellness veterinarian into the exam room. So here's a picture of Dr. Kobe, one of our wellness veterinarians who's doing an exam at one of our GP hospitals. He'll finish this exam up. He might spend anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes talking to the owners in the room. And then from this exam, he might hop over to an exam in clinic number 2, 3, 4, or 5. Our typical wellness veterinarian is seeing about 30 to 40 wellness cases a day in this system. But what it mainly does is it allows our boots on ground veterinarian in each of these clinics to be focused on the sick patients, right? So the financial implications that we see with this is that, you know, when we have a conventional flow of a conventional GP is, let's say you're seeing 14 cases a day. It's a mixture of wellness and sickness with an average client transaction of about $200. These are kind of the stats that you're going to see in this lane. Whereas if you can offload those wellness cases, right, to a different provider mechanism, in this case, we're using our LVTs and VAs, you can increase the capacity of the hospital. The veterinarian themselves, the boots on ground veterinarian who's seeing those wellness cases is usually seeing less cases per day, but the cases that they're seeing are of higher value. So the average client transaction for the hospital jumps, you know, about 50%. We're seeing an average about 310 with an overall increased revenue per day. So the in-clinic telemedicine allows that remote DVM to oversee wellness cases while the on-site veterinarian focus is on the urgent and kind of higher value cases. And as you can see, we on average increase that exam room throughput from 14 to about 20 cases per day by dividing the lanes of care. So what if you can be saying it works for us because we can hire our wellness veterinarian and service them across multiple clinics. But like, you know, most people out there, they have a single practice or 2 practices, right? That they have hiring a full-time veterinarian to do just the wellness cases usually isn't a reasonable option for that. So what are the other ways that you could get this kind of efficiency with just utilizing the staff that you have? And so the first thing would be elevating the role of the technischen and veterinary assistant. So you don't have to have a telemedicine model in order to elevate that LVT and VA into those forward-facing kind of income-producing roles. It does take time and commitment to train them, and usually a little bit of an increased staffing cost, but the result is that you can get increased, you know, increased number of cases through the doors by utilizing the model. And then the second thing that you can do is to access those scribe and AI-driven kind of record-keeping modalities to cut down the data entry that you have going through your clinic. So any of you who work in the clinic know that the veterinarian probably spends, I don't know, 25 to 30% of their time in the medical record. A lot of that time is typing. There are a lot of workflows right now that automate that process through Scribe and AI software that can at least cut that time in half. So what we're seeing with here is once you start to harness your support staff, right? We do it through our in-clinic telemedicine model, but you would get a similar kind of efficiency just by utilizing your LVTs and VAs for those wellness cases more effectively. You start to increase revenue, which will then increase your 4-wall margin. And then by comparison, you get a decrease staffing percent for your DVMs. So on average, our clinics are about 8% less for our staffing, for our DVM staffing costs than a conventional GP practice. Our staff expense, you can see our support staff is 4% higher, right? So we're a little bit higher on our support staff, but support staff is easily trainable. They're a lot easier to find than veterinarians, and that's kind of the key to unlocking the efficiency of the veterinarian there. And so, you know, in an optimized model, you're going to have vet techs and assistants that manage your wellness cases supported by your DVMs, but it's not going to be your DVMs that are doing the bulk of the work in the wellness cases. You really want them focused on the non-wellness cases. So the first thing that you would, you know, when you go back to your clinics is take a really good look at your kind of the people, the technology that you're using, and the processes that you have in place. And between all three of these, there's usually a significant unlock there, and how to organize the flow structure of how those cases are being seen. And if cases are being treated as equal in your clinic, meaning that a wellness case is being treated kind of the equivalent as far as the time, attention, and resources that it's given as a non-wellness case, then I would go back and take a hard look at that, because those wellness cases, while they're super important, clients can oftentimes get very good care from a well-trained support staff, and the veterinarian can be freed up to generate more income from those higher generating sick cases. So the traditional role as technicians in a support model only, you know, needs to be reconsidered. Now, I'm not saying unleash technicians and just let them see cases willy-nilly. That's certainly not the case. And this isn't a role that I would assign for any technician, right? So you have to be frugal about the staff that you choose to put in that client-facing position, and their skill set to do so. But it can be highly financially rewarding for the clinic. Going back to the talk that was before this, we talked about retention, right? And what we've seen in our model is that the LVTs that enjoy that client-facing role have immense job satisfaction by being put in that client-facing role. And so our retention for our wellness LVTs is extremely high, which has more downstream positive financial implications for the clinic, right? And then our vets, while there are some vets that like the wellness care aspect, a lot of vets, you know, kind of like to treat the sick puppies and kittens out there. And this really frees up their time and attention to focus on the sick cases that are in the hospital without constantly being pulled into the wellness exam rooms. So we're going to do a little case study. I have 3 case studies here, but I know we were running a bit late. So I'm just going to kind of go through kind of scenario B right here. And it's a clinic. Let's just say we have a clinic that's open 5 days a week. It's a two doctor clinic, produces about 1.25 million in revenue with about a 10% margin. So, you know, one of the main problems that we're going to see here is we're open limited hours. You know, probably overworked staff turning around patients, struggled to expand due to lack of DVM availability. Basically, we're working at kind of the full capacity for the current system, right? Knowing that there is more that we could gain, but we just don't have the DVM power to get there. And so by simply taking a look at how you're managing the case flows in the clinic, and by offloading the wellness cases to a support staff wellness model, you can free up a good chunk of that DVM capacity to then see increased cases without actually bringing another DVM on site, right? So it allows your clinic to grow case volume and revenue without actually adding any additional DVM. So the revenue growth that you can capture is anywhere probably 30 to 50% of the current clinic. And of course, that's becomes your kind of gravy revenue at this point. And so you're looking at a margin of increase of like anywhere from 150 to 200% there. So what we see is that adopting technology is kind of no longer optional in veterinary medicine, as being one that has to drive our technology changes to all of our clinics. I know how hard it is to get veterinarians and staff to embrace new softwares and new operational flows. So it's not easy, but it's absolutely going to be required for the survival of your clinic moving forward. Empowering support staff is absolutely a financial advantage. One of the biggest mistakes that we see clinics make is that they don't invest in their support staff, right? They just try to hire cheap, right? They're viewed as cheap and replaceable. And we all know that great support staff make the absolute difference in a clinic running well, and your vets being happy, to the opposite. And the hybrid model works, leveraging our support staff, our skilled and selectively leveraging that skilled support staff, so they can be revenue generators in that wellness capacity works. It improves the clinic profitability without adding extra burdens onto your DVMs. So what are some next steps that you could do for your clinics when you go home? Is to go home, identify the bottlenecks in your operation, because we all know all the cases in the clinic flow through the DVM, right? So look at where the main bottlenecks in the operation are. Explore your technology software solutions, such as something as simple as ChatGPT, to some of the scribe softwares that are out there, like Covet, Talkatoo, Scribble. There's a lot of others. But the most important thing that you can probably do for your clinic is to really train and elevate your support staff, and having them step into the role of that client-facing, some of that wellness care provider, to really free up the capacity of your in-clinic veterinarians. So the future of veterinary medicine is not just about doing more, it's about working smarter. I think we all know that. We have to leverage the staff that we have. We can't create veterinarians out of thin air, although I wish I could. And we really need to optimize our support staff in order to address the shortages, the veterinary shortages that we have here. So every model that you can take, there's different models to optimize your support staff, and models are going to look a little bit differently, but we really need to start letting our support staff be revenue producers for that capacity, so we can benefit the pets, the clients, and the financial health of our clinics. So with that, I got through that a little bit quickly, but I want to leave time for questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Katie. So there are a couple questions. You were talking about training client-facing staff, how important that is. Is there anything specific you want to tell us as far as like what kind of training do you bring in consultants or?
Yeah, I mean, usually if you're gonna so I would say no, do not bring in consultants, because no one knows the clinics like the people that work in the clinics. So consultants can come in and they can give you, kind of a bird's eye view of what's going on, but oftentimes those changes aren't going to be substantial changes that stay with the clinic for years to come. And the key of this is the relationship between the support staff and the veterinarian, right? So you have to have the staff that has the mindset to be progressive. So it won't work if you have a veterinarian who's in there, who's like, I would never allow a tech to do, that's fine. The crotchety old veterinarian is just going to stay crotchety old veterinarian. You're not going to change that person. To implement change in that situation is going to be painful for everybody. But you certainly have a lot I would say the majority of veterinarians out there that see the value of their staff. And so starting that conversation within the clinic between the veterinarian and the staff, to see which staff members want to have that client facing responsibility, and then to work with that veterinarian and say, like, okay, let's start with, with training Molly, our LVT over here, up into to be that client facing. We're going to have her for 2 months go into all your wellness exams with you, right? You're going to basically, she's going to script out exactly what you say, and then we're going to give her some additional CE. And there's tons of CE, free CE, that support staff can take to get more tuned up for that. And then you just start by saying, like, okay, Molly, we're going to give you 3 appointments a day, right? And develop it right there. So it's not a switch that you're going to turn on where you're going to pay $5,000 and a month later you're going to have a clinic that's like completely transformed. So it's an investment that you're going to make probably over a 6 to 12 month process, and it's very specific to the individuals that are in that clinic in order to do it well.
Okay. So another question was dealing with as far as retaining staff. Any compensation structures that you found work better than others? Percent of revenue or bonuses or what have you?
Yeah. Bonuses do well. So, but you have to be organized in a way that you can share the financials with the staff in a meaningful way and in a frequent way, right? So you have to decide which KPIs you're going to target, whether it's number of exams, total revenue for the clinic, number of Simpurica sold, like whatever it is, like, right. So, but pick like 3 of them, right? And hold them accountable to those metrics. And you'd be surprised when you put a bonus structure with that, how far your support staff will reach to get to that bonus. We do pay higher, at least at BoosterPet, we do pay higher than average for our support staff roles, because we want to attract the more experienced support staff. I will say that our ability to train up quality individuals is much, much higher, much faster when we have someone with 15, 20 years of experience coming in than someone right out of vet tech school, or, that's a new VA. So the experience in your group is going to count for a lot. I think you could do a compensation where you could do like a percent of production, some kind of like base hourly rate, then with a percent of production. We haven't done that yet at BoosterPet. The main reason we haven't done it is when we've rolled it out to our vet techs, they would rather stay with the higher hourly wage. That's a sure thing, than risk going to a slightly lower hourly wage, but maybe bigger bonus at the end, right? With a percentage of production compensation. So I think it'd be fun to play with, but there's a lot that you can do to incentivize. But money incentivizes to a certain point.
So a follow-up question here was, have you found that it helps you that your footprint is relatively big? I think you said you have seven sites. Does that give your technicians, your support staff, just more confidence and comfort that they're part of a larger organization that's growing? And then secondly, does it give you managerial flexibility to have, different people report to different offices, different days?
Yeah. I mean, because we do have the advantage that we're 7. Not all 7 clinics are drivable to each other, but all 7 clinics have at least one sister clinic, and some of them have more than one sister clinic, right? We do round together as an ecosystem, so all 7 clinics round together every morning in like this kind of teams rounding approach. So we are a very close connected organization, which does give, I think, our staff a little bit more confidence, but also they just know that they have more resources to, if they have a question with something, it's not just the people in their clinic that they can ask outside of their own home clinic, as well. So as far as what we do, leveraging tele-wellness, it would be hard to do that if you had you know, 2 or less clinics. I think you could start doing something fun with 3 clinics, but you know, to pay for a full-time veterinarian to just see wellness cases. So then I affectionately refer to them as vaccinarians. You know, it would be hard to financially justify that in a smaller scale. But that's where you just kind of pivot and say, okay, well, we can't have the tele-wellness veterinarian come into the exam room, but how are we going to make it so that our boots on ground veterinarian is spending minimal time involved in each of those wellness cases? But yeah, being 7, I probably helps. Yeah.
Okay. Anything you want to say about making the facilities open after hours, and anything you want to say about mobile services?
So by after hours, you mean, oh, like doing telemedicine, offering telemedicine appointments to people at home or something like that?
I just mean making the veterinary clinics open more than 9 to 5, in the
Yeah, so
evenings or weekends.
yeah, yeah. So certainly like people want to go to the vet when it's convenient for them, right? And so, you know, the ideal situation would be like you could staff it so that you're open like kind of early in the morning and then like late in the evening, but like good luck with that, right? You also need to make it so that your labor costs, you know, are in line with the revenue that you can capture. We have seen that you know, by trying to stay a little bit outside of conventional hours, kind of that 8 to 5 scenario. That if you can try to shift your hours, let's say from a 9 to 7 or, you know, 10 to 8 or something like that, you do capture more revenue with that. And then the other thing was mobile. What was your question with mobile?
Is that something that you've tried and how that works for you?
Yeah. So we've experimented with mobile. Actually, when we were building our first 4 clinics, um, we ran into some delays. We were about 6 months delayed in opening our first, so we were like, oh, what the hell? Let's build. Let's go and do some mobile stuff with this. You know, mobile's tricky, and so um, there are a couple of states now that have the BCPR legislation where you could do mobile with a technician VA team and provide basically, you know, vaccine clinics, and or even if you wanted to go to home care where you could do a good job with that in a mobile capacity. But you know, mobile's super expensive to operate with just time behind the steering wheel. So, so it depends on kind of what mobile, if you're trying to go like take the text to people's houses, that's a super hard thing to do, and still be profitable with all the windshield time that you have, even though you're not employing a doctor to do that. And you're using the doctor via telemedicine. So that's a difficult operational model. And then the vaccine clinics, there's just not many states where you can do that new patient, establish the VCPR, and still do your full kind of wellness intake without a boots on ground veterinarian. Did I answer
Okay.
that question, or were you asking
Yeah,
something
no,
completely else?
I think that's good. We got a thumbs up for that. So
Okay.
I think we're good on that. Um, all right. Well, I think we'll conclude the presentation at this point because it's been about a half an hour. So,
Mhm.
Dr. Katie Cutter, thank you so much for speaking to us about making veterinary practices more efficient and better leveraging the staff. We really appreciate that.